In a land scarred by prejudice, Sarah Littlefeather, a widow marked by heritage and hardship, was hunted simply for who she was. Ruthless bounty hunters, blinded by greed and bias, sought to capture her and crush her spirit. But when Ethan Cole, a weary railway guard, stepped in with fierce determination, the course of their fate changed forever. Just wait until you see how this story's turning point shattered injustice and let hope rise like the morning sun. Ethan Cole had been the railway guard for nearly a decade, his life tied to the endless stretches of tracks that cut through the rugged western frontier. The stations he tended were small, isolated places where travelers came and went like whispers on the wind, faces blurring into one another, stories half told and soon forgotten. Yet when Sarah Littlefeather stepped onto the platform that cold morning, Ethan felt the weight of her presence like no other before. Sarah was a Paiute widow, her quiet strength wrapped in the worn fabric of loss and survival. The recent conflicts that had ravaged the lands left scars not only on the earth, but on the people who lived there. Her arrival stirred something in the town that neither Ethan nor Sarah could ignore. Whispers followed her footsteps, eyes hardened with suspicion. The townsfolk's mistrust was palpable, a wall of silent judgment built on old fears and unfamiliar customs. What made Sarah stand apart was not only the resilience in her gaze, but the striking war paint that adorned every boxcar on the train, a bold declaration of identity and defiance. To the people of the town, this was a symbol they neither understood nor accepted. To Ethan, it was a puzzle he struggled to unravel. Inside, Ethan wrestled with his own feelings. The town's quiet hostility seeped into him like a chill, erecting a barrier he found hard to break. He caught himself hesitating, caught between the comfort of familiar prejudice and the unsettling pull of something deeper. Beneath the surface of that hesitation burned a smoldering anger, not at Sarah, but at the injustice that clung to her story. It was a hatred born from recognition, for Ethan had seen similar shadows cast over his own family's past. The same unfair treatment, the same whispered condemnations that stained generations. Yet that hatred was tangled with something more fragile, an unspoken compassion that unsettled him, made him question the path he'd always walked. In that moment, as the train whistle echoed faintly against the mountains, Ethan stood at a crossroads, the shadow of hatred stretching long behind him, threatening to obscure the light just beyond. It was just before dawn when the first light began to bleed softly over the horizon, casting long shadows across the rail yard. The world felt suspended in that fragile moment between night and day, a hush before the inevitable storm. That's when Sarah appeared, her figure limping toward the tracks, every step heavy with exhaustion and pain. Her clothes were torn, dust clinging to her skin like a second layer, and the look in her eyes told a story that words could never fully capture, one of fear, loss, and unyielding determination. She had fled from an attack that shattered the fragile safety she had tried to build. Her home, a place of memory and hope, had been violently taken from her, and now she was running from danger that sought to silence her. Ethan was there, watching the first train of the morning rattle to a stop. The moment he saw Sarah, something inside him shifted. The distance he'd tried to maintain, the cold reserve that the townsfolk's suspicion had built around him, crumbled instantly. There was no longer room for hesitation, no space for doubt. The raw pain in her eyes spoke directly to the part of him that remembered grief, the silent strength in her stance echoing a resilience he recognized deep within himself. Without a second thought, Ethan stepped forward and helped her onto the old guard car. The rails hummed beneath them as the train began to move, the steady rhythm offering a fragile promise of safety in the uncertainty ahead. As the sun rose higher, the dawn light revealed a striking image, the war paint boldly emblazoned on every boxcar, a vivid testament to the Paiute spirit that Sarah carried with quiet pride and fierce defiance. It was a symbol of survival, of identity that refused to be erased. For Ethan, what began as a flicker of empathy blossomed into something far stronger, a fierce protectiveness, a commitment to shield Sarah from the harsh judgment and dangers that lurked outside the train's rattling walls. In that moment, as the landscape sped past, the fragile line between duty and compassion blurred, and a new journey began, one that neither of them could have predicted. The calm of the early morning shattered like glass beneath the thunderous roar of horses and shouted commands. Trouble was never far behind. A ruthless band of bounty hunters, hardened by greed and blind prejudice, had caught wind of Sarah's flight. Their eyes burned not just with the promise of reward, but with a cold, unyielding determination to capture her, no matter the cost. For Ethan, the arrival of these relentless pursuers was like a spark to dry tinder. The quiet, simmering hatred he had carried beneath his surface exploded into a blazing fire. This was no longer just about protecting one woman, it was about confronting the cruel system that allowed such injustice to thrive unchecked. His anger burned fierce and bright, fueled equally by his past wounds and the injustice Sarah faced. The train rattled and groaned as Ethan took control, his hands steady but his heart pounding with fierce resolve. He fought with grit and cunning, pushing himself beyond the limits of exhaustion. Every threat from the hunters only sharpened his focus. Every challenge they threw at him was met with a fierce determination to keep the train moving, to keep Sarah safe. The war paint on each boxcar, once a silent symbol of identity, now became a banner of resistance. It was a declaration, loud and unyielding, that they would not bow, would not be broken. Their journey transformed from a desperate escape into a battle for dignity and survival, a fight to reclaim what had been taken from them. In the face of danger, Ethan discovered a strength he never knew he possessed. The fear that once held him back was replaced by a powerful drive to stand firm against cruelty and hate. As the train thundered through the rugged landscape, carrying both hope and defiance, Ethan and Sarah became symbols of a fight far greater than themselves. As the train crested the final ridge, the first full rays of sunlight spilled over the valley below, bathing the rugged landscape in warm golden hues. The world seemed to hold its breath in that moment, a fragile pause between hardship and hope. Ethan's heart pounded, not with fear or anger now, but with a quiet certainty. Through sheer wit and unwavering determination, he had outmaneuvered the relentless hunters. Sarah was safe. The sanctuary waiting beyond the valley was more than just a place. It was a promise of new beginnings, a chance for Sarah to rebuild the life so cruelly disrupted. Watching the sunlight touch the earth, Ethan felt something far deeper than the thrill of victory. It was a profound realization that justice, however elusive, could be carved from even the harshest terrain. That hope could endure. The war paint emblazoned across the boxcars, once a mark of defiance, now stood as a testament to resilience and survival. It symbolized the unbreakable spirit of those who refuse to be erased, who carry their identity with pride despite the odds. More than paint, it was a bond forged in the furnace of struggle and courage. Sarah, who had once been hunted and broken, now stood tall, a living emblem of hope and renewal, not just carried by the rails or the train, but uplifted by Ethan's steadfast heart and fierce protection. Their journey, marked by danger and resolve, had become a quiet revolution, whispered beneath the rising sun. In that golden dawn, they both understood. Sometimes the greatest triumph is simply the will to keep moving forward.